Okay, we're up to new Perek, Daf Mem Aleph Amid Aleph, and this Perek is the Perek of Shlichus. It's known as one of the most famous Parakim in Shas. We have in Yeshiva. It's not possible that if you're in Yeshiva for any amount of time that you do not learn this Perek. Really deals with mainly the halachas, the beginning of the halachas of Shlichus, and Bez Hashem Yisbarach will have a very nice question today. Says the Mishnah, Hayish Mekadesh Boyu B'Shluchai. A man can be Mekadesh with himself and through a Shliach. The Gemara, you just had to say the man can be Mekadesh with a Shliach, and we know that he can be Mekadesh himself because the Shliach has to get his power from the individual. The Gemara will address that. So that's a Shliach. That's a Shliach to go ahead and be Mekadesh. But Yishim is Kadeshes ba u'b'shlucha. A woman can accept Kidushin by herself, and a Shliach. A Shliach can be a Shliach l'Kabbalah to Mekabel what her Kidushin. Again, we're familiar with the concept of Shlichus from Masechta Gittin, and in fact, we're going to learn out the fact that you could make a Shliach by Kidushin. We're going to learn out from Gittin. Hayish Mekadesh es bita kashi naira. A man can be Mekadesh his daughter when she's a naira, boy and certainly she can be Mekadesh what when she's a katana. Again, when she's a naira, she already has her own jurisdiction somewhat, and as a katana she doesn't. So certainly he can be Mekadesh if he can Mekadesh as a naira, he can be Mekadesh as a katana. And the Gemara will address why the Mishnah said naira. Says the Gemara, may I run to Mem Aleph Amid Aleph. Hashta b'shluchai Mekadesh boy mi boy. And obviously, if a man can Mekadesh a woman through a shliach, of course he can Mekadesh himself. So Rabbi Yosef, mitzvah boy Yosef b'shluchai. It's the reason why we listed it is not to tell me the din, because we know the din, but we're telling me a priority. The priority is that a man should be Mekadesh, given the druthers himself or a shliach. He should be Mekadesh himself. Mitzvah bo yosim b'shlucha. It's a mitzvah more than a shliach. Ki hod Rav Safra machrish reisha. Rav Safra, when it comes to Erev Shabbos, he would not go ahead and send a servant to go ahead and singe the head. He would do it himself. Rava malach shivuta. Rava would go ahead and salt a fish called shivuta. Why did they go ahead and do it themselves? Because mitzvah bo yosim b'shlucha. So again, for a man to get married is a mitzvah, and therefore mitzvah bo yosim b'shlucha. Says Rashi, Rashi tells you when you're oisik in the mitzvah yourself, you get more schar. You get more schar. In other words, there's different. The mitzvah over here is for him to get married. The shliach is facilitating that, but for him to do it himself is get more schar than what is done al yedei shliach. Ikadi Amri, Beho Isur Nami Ispa. Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Rabbi Yehuda Marav, Asala Adam Sheikadis Isha at Shirena. If for him to go ahead and use a shliach is worse. It's usher. It's usher to Mekadesh al Yidei Shliach, right? Why? Because maybe when he does see Shema Yirba Dava Miguna, it is Gana Allah, and as a result, she'll find them repulsive. And it says you should love your friend like yourself, and therefore what? You should not go ahead and use a shliach. You should not use a shliach. Okay? Did I skip? No, I didn't skip. Right? Okay, so again, Hayish Mekadesh Boya B'Shluchai, according to the first lashon, it is a bigger mitzvah for him. According to the second lashon, it's even an issa for him to go ahead and use a shliach. Right? It's even an issa for him. Rashi says, "Isuri nami ikka im yachal lekadesh ba'atzmai." Rashi says something very interesting. If he's able to mekadesh himself, the kiddush al yidei shliach, the mitzvah sheyirena shemet is gan alav. It's a key to Rashi, guys. Im yachal lekadesh ba'atzmai. In other words, let's say he doesn't have a choice. For example, if you were thinking when we did this, then how could Avram send Eliezer to go ahead and get a wife for Yitzchak? Right? How can Avram Avinu send to get, if you're supposed to see the woman before you go ahead and marry her, then how could he send them out? And the answer is that Yitzchak couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. He was not able to. He was the Ola Tamimi after the Akedah. So Rashi throws in a little nakuda. Im yachol lekadesh batzmo. If he's able to do himself, then it's the issa. If he's not able to do himself, then there's not the issa. That would answer that question. Okay, so two lashonos. One, there's a mitzvah. Second lashon, there's an issa. It's even asa because why? If you don't see her before you marry her, shemet iskano, or maybe what in miskano. The chiyat mad Rabbi Yosef, and when we learn Yosef's din, that's a mitzvah. Aseifa itma. We learned regarding the woman. Ha'isha miskadeshes bo b'shlucha, hashte b'shlucha mikadsha bo mi boy. If she can send a shliach to Mekabel Kidushin, then why don't we go ahead right and why do you have to tell us that she could accept it herself? The shliach can't be more than her. So Rabbi Yosef, mitzvah ba Yosef b'shlucha. The mitzvah her more than b'shlucha. Ki had Rav Safra machar reisha Rav Malach shivuta. So there's still a mitzvah for her. So it's masher from this Gemara that's a mitzvah for a woman to get married. It's masher from this Gemara. There's a mitzvah for a woman to get married, right? Now, going back to our Yevamis days, we know women are not mitzvah in Perivirivya, right? We know women are not mitzvah in Perivirivya, guys, right? So what's the mitzvah over here? So the Rambam brings it down in Aleph Meishus, and he says there is a mitzvah for a woman to get married. The Rosh disagrees. The Ran, which we've mentioned before, we mentioned this when we did the sugya of Pruravu, since a man can't accomplish the mitzvah without the wife, that the woman is a misayes, she helps him do the mitzvah, maybe she gets the mitzvah. So that would be very geschmack. Either you have the lashon of the Rambam or the lashon of the Ran would fit in this Gemara. There is a mitzvah of a woman to get married. Like the Rambam, there's a mitzvah of just to get married. Like the Ran, the mitzvah would be the Messiah in Perivirivya. That's the mitzvah. Not to get married. The mitzvah is Perivirivya, right? Man has to have children. So since he's Messiah, so mitzvah ba, like this again, you have to be medayik the lashon of the Gemara. It's mashma clearly there is some type of mitzvah over here. Okay. Anyway, so therefore l'chayra, that would be a very good way to go ahead and answer the mitzvah. Either the Rambam you have, or you have the Ran. Says the Gemara Kiyodor Safra Machrosheisha. Again, he would since the hedge for Shabbos and Ravach Malash Shivuto, he would salt the fish to cover Shabbos more than man and then his shliach. Aval b'ho isur lespa. However, by women there's no isur. Now, meaning, why don't you say that it's asa for a woman to get married? Maybe the husband shows up and she will not be satisfied. On that, we say Kidrei Shlakish. Now, Reish Lakish, Tav l'meisiv tandoi. Better to sit as two l'meisiv armolei than to sit alone. Right? It's better to sit two, right? Better to sit two together, right? And then alone. So we have two ways to learn pshat. According to the first pshat, there's a mitzvah on the man. According to the second pshat, there's an issue on the man. According to the second pshat, it's going on the sefer. There's a mitzvah on the woman to by herself and not a shliach. Again, I mean the shliach, right? But by woman, there is no issa. There's no issa for the woman to go ahead and use a shliach. Why? Because we don't apply the concept of that maybe she'll see him and she will find him repulsive. Because better to sit with somebody, a woman would rather be married than not. Says the Gemara. Okay, now Ish Mekadesh Espita Kashi Naira. The Mishnah said that a woman can Mekadesh his daughter when she's a Naira. Kashi Naira in Kashi Katana Loi. When she's Naira in when she's Katana not. Messiah the Rav. It's a raya to Rav. Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Vitem Rav Elazar. Also Adam She Kadesh Espita Kashi Katana. At Shetigad V'Toimi Reploini Ani writes there. It's also for him to go ahead and marry his daughter off as a katana, right? You know, if you don't say Tav Meisiv Tan Doi by a katana, right? You would say it by Naira, you wouldn't say it by katana. So therefore, you're worried that the katana may not decide that this works for her. Let's see Taisus. Asal Adam Shikadish Espita Shi Katana. Piafagav Dama El. The Surah Leka Mishum the Tav Meisiv Tan Doi. So how can you say? Fact Taisus the Kasha fellas. How can you say it's asal adam? You're using the lashon of isser. You just told me by woman there is no isser. Tav l'meisiv karen doy l'meisiv armaloi. Now all of a sudden you're creating an isser. Where are you creating this isser from? Where's this isser coming from? Asal adam shikadish is bita kishiktana. But 1 second, you said tav l'meisiv karen doy l'meisiv armaloi. Hani mil begedoyla she miskadesh alidei atzma. The kivin shenisratza lekel l'meicha shemet tachser. In other words, since the woman sent out a shliach, we're not worried that she may have charata. Once she made a shliach go find me a husband. She's saying, find me a husband, whatever it is. I'm going to go ahead and accept. Mashenkin the Katana, who can't appoint a shliach, we're not going to say the lashon of what tav l'meisiv tan daim l'meisiv lono. Al the Katana shes kadesh la yidei avia ikal mechesh. We have to worry. Shemim hoyse gedayla hoyse mismaratza. Maybe if she was a gedayla, she wouldn't have gone ahead and allowed the father. Okay, so that's the chilik between the two. Why it's asa by what to marry Katana, because we don't say the svara of tav l'meisiv tan daim l'meisiv molay. Now, we get a little insight into the Middle Ages, and it's very interesting because nothing changes over time. The Akshav Shonu Noigim, Lekadish B'Neisenu Afilu Ketanais. So Tosfos, this is the early parts. This is the 12th century, 13th century, right? 13th century, saying even to now. So if it's asa, why are we marrying our daughters off when the Ketanais? Seemed to be common practice at the time. Hainu Mishum. Each and every day the galus becomes stronger. And if he has in his possession now the money to give her a dowry, a trousseau, and marry her off, maybe over time he will not have it. And she'll remain an aguna. So a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Right now, you have the money to marry off your daughter, which is the katana. You don't know what the future is going to bring. Go for it. They was worried about the shidduch crisis even then, guys, right? They would really, you see, they would marry off because even then, amazing. Tosfos brings such a insight. What happened over there? Practicality. You have the money now, marry her off. You don't know what's going to be. Shema, maybe. Mateshev bitoy aguna la'olam. She shouldn't remain aguna forever. Unbelievable. Fighter. Ha'ish mekadesh es bita kashinaira let me say it's us adam. The time plenty and he writes it. Shlichus min alon. Now shlichus, how do you know shliach? Pirish, guys. The Gemara is not asking how do you know shlichus. Period. The Gemara is, this is a source for shlichus. The Kol Torah Kula. It's not saying Ha'ish mekadesh boya b'shluchai. We're saying, how do you know shlichus? How do you know there's such a vehicle called shlichus that we take for granted? So this is the sugya. This is a shas sugya. How do you know there's such a thing as shlichus? Okay. Well, we're familiar with Masechta Gittin, where we spoke about the following. We spoke out the following case, following pasuk. A man takes a woman and lives with her. And Shilcha means sends her. So it's you can break it up to two parts. Shalach, he, and the mapik he. Says the Gemara. Shlichus midal netanya. V'shilach melamed shehi shu is shliach. V'shilcha. So the word shilach is the shin lamed chesed v'shilcha. And now we're saying the v'shilcha with the mapik he in the second part. Melamed shliach is shliach. That the shliach can make I skip. Melamed shehi is shliach. V'shilcha melamed shliach is shliach. I skipped. The shliach melamed shu is shliach. V'shilcha melamed shehi is shliach. That she can go make a shliach. Now it says another again. It says v'shilcha. It says another time. Melamed shliach is shliach. Ashlim beGerishin beKidushin minala. And so good, you know shlichus exists by Gerishin. Where do you know it exists by Kidushin? The chitem with the elef beGerishin. You learn out of Memetzinu, just like by Gerishin. There's such a concept of shliach, so too by Kidushin. There should be a concept of shliach. You'll say Mila Gerishin Shekein Yeshna Bal Karcha. Gerishin, you know why you can make a shliach? Because she has very little say in the matter. She can be divorced against the will. The male of the svara is that what? That a shliach can do the job. Masha'en came by Kidushin, that she has a say in the matter, maybe shlichus not. Makra, what do we have? The famous hekish, v'yotza v'hoysa, l'sach acher, v'yotza is the act of Gerishin, v'hoysa havaya, the act of Kidushin, makash havaya liyitzia, we make a hekish between Kidushin and Gerishin. Ma yitzia, as it says openly, mashva shliach, she can make a shliach, afavaya nami mashva shliach. So to avaya, she could go ahead and make a shliach. So now, we know two places, right? We know two places for shlichus. we know from Gittin, and from Gittin we make a hekesh to Kidushin. So when our Mishnah says Ish Mekadesh Boya B'Shluchai, we're learning it out from the fact that it says B'Shilach by Gittin, the Yatz of a Hoishlo, we're making a hekesh, and in Mela we have such halacha. Ve'al nan ha'oimel l'shluchai. A person says to a shliach, say Torah, go ahead and take off truma. Now truma, guys, a chita, midaraisa, even one chita pot goes ahead and takes care of it, right? The Rabbanan set standards. For standard is 1/50th. If you're generous, it's 1/40th. If you're cheaper, it's 1/60th. Those are the shiurim. Okay, there's nothing to do with the sugya over here. We're just mentioning it. So Tarim Kidas Balabayas, you'll take off according what the Balabayas usually takes off. If you don't know Das Balabayas, you don't know what usually the Balabayas takes off. Tarim Bebenis, take off 1/50th. Echem Echamishim. Amid Beis. Hiches Asara to 1/40th. Ahoisav Asara to 1/60th. Then Truma say Truma. Minalon. Where do you know there's such a concept by? All we need, fellas, is where do you know there's a shlichus by Truma? In other words, this is the sugya of shlichus. I know there's a din of shlichus by Gerushin. I know there's a din of shlichus by Kidushin. Where do you know there's a din of Truma? And clearly there is a shlichus by Truma because a person can appoint a shliach to take off Truma, correct? Where's the source from? What are you going to say? Let's learn it out from Gittin and Kidushin, correct? Let's learn it out from Gerushin, just like we learned out Kidushin from Gerushin. You'll ask Mala Gerushin Shkeyesh Nechoil. In other words, Gerushin does not have any aspect of Kedusha. Mashenkin Truma has a certain aspect of Kedusha because it's Asa to Zorim and it's Mutta to Kahanim. So maybe over there by Gerushin, which is mundane in nature, vis-a-vis Truma, you can go ahead and make a Shliach. Mashenkin Truma, which has a higher level, not. So that's, in other words, when you have a Memetzinu, you have a Pircha Koldahu, we're asking a Pasha Akasha, I see a chiluk between Truma and Gerushin that I would not enable me to learn out what? To learn out Truma from Gerushin. Cross, so the pasuk says, Atem Gamatem. What does he say? What's the pasuk? The full pasuk is Kein Torimuga Atem Truma Hashem Mikol Ma'asor Seichem Asher Tichu Meis Bnei Yisrael. Now it says the word Gam. The word Gam is totally extraneous. Atem, when it could have said Atem, it says Gam Atem. The Rabbi says a Shliach. To be married a Shliach, off in a pasuk. Good. So now the Gemara is going to go the other direction. So let's learn out Gerushin and Kidushin from Truma. Let's learn out Gerushin. In other words, this is the sugya now of, okay, I know this, so why this? In other words, the Torah, which is always Mekatzer, just mentioned it by Truma, and I'd be able to learn out Gerushin and Kidushin from Truma. There's a kasha. Right? You can go ahead and separate Truma and Machshava. In other words, you could say I have a pile in my house. From the eastern part of the pile should be Truma. Yet you go ahead and say in your mind you want to divorce your wife or you want to be Mekadesh your wife, it ain't happening. So Mamela, since it could be happening Machshava, which is so therefore you see you don't need an action on the individual, so he can make a shliach. Mashen came by Gerushin and Kedushin not. Fred Vaditnan. Chabura sha'abad pischa, a chabura that lost his Korban Pesach. Now, Korban Pesach, fellas, you had to be counted in, right? You had to be counted in. You had to be mamana, and then every person would get a piece of that action. So what happened? They went ahead and they designated, let's say 5, 10 people designated one sheep. They lost the sheep. And they said to an individual, "Seu bikish v'shachar aleinu." Go ahead, find the sheep, and shecht it for us. He went, he found it, and he shechted. And they went, they found another sheep, and they shechted that other sheep. Where is their Korban Pesach? In the first or the second? Im shaloi nishchat rishoin. If his went first, hu oichel mishaloi, vehem oichlin. And they would go ahead and eat with him. In other words, since they never removed their hands from the first Pesach, so the first Pesach is the Pesach if he went ahead and shechted. Now, is he a shliach for them? Yes. So you see shlichus by Karbanis also. So now we've established shlichus from Kidushin and Gerushin. We establish shlichus by truma. We establish you can't learn that one from the other, right? We can't learn one from the other. One is because one is chol, one's a machshava, and now we have the shlichus by korban pesach. The chitema neilif mehanach. Let's say learn out from truma gerushin. Malahanach truma and gerushin sheken yeshna choil etzel kachim. Even truma, which was kodesh etzel gerushin, compared to kachim, it's choil. Compared to a kachim, an animal that is kodesh, truma is choil. So therefore, you would not be able to learn out korban pesach from them. Why? Because it's kodesh, right? So therefore, where do you have a source for korban pesach? Nafkalei of Yeshua ben Karcha. We learned that from Yeshua ben Karcha. Don't remember Yeshua ben Karcha. Minayin sheshlucha shalad kemoisai. How do you know the shliach of a person is like him? Shenemar v'shachtu oisai kol v'hoya lechem mishmeres arabar asayoyim l'chaydesh hazeh. It should be mishmeres until the 14th day of the month, because they're watching it from the Shabbos Hagadol from Yud. V'shachatu oisai kol kadalas bnei Yisrael ben Arbayim. And they would shech it, all the gemeinde of Kal Yisrael ben Arbayim, they would shech in the afternoon. That's what the pasuk says. The shachdu was a kol Kal Yisrael ben Arbayim. The chikol kahal kul and shechdin, le'en sheched ele echad. Right. In other words, only one person went ahead and shechted. Fellas, two people can't shech. Only one person. You can't have two people shechting at the same time. Only one person can shech. So how can you possibly say everyone was shechting? In other words, we all agree that one Pesach was elabayas, it wasn't, and each individual did not have the korban Pesach to say that each individual shechted. There was a korban Pesach for a house. In the house, how many people shechted? One. So obviously that one person is shechting what? For others. So l'chayri, you have a very good raya by kachim that one can shecht. When it says v'shachatu, I saw kol kal v'sel. Not everyone's shechting, guys, right? You all guys follow along the trail. We know that by korban Pesach, it's eaten in a chabura. So each house had a korban Pesach. How many people of that house did the mechanical act of shchita? One. Yet everyone's eating it, and it says v'shachatu for everybody. So obviously, what was that person? That person was a shliach. So you have a raya that shchita by kachim is not al yidei shliach. Says the Gemara Vaita. Okay, so now you've established it, guys. Fred Gemara nichter rachmana b'kachim v'neisei hanach v'nigruminei. So now let's reverse the. We wanted to learn how kach from them, we couldn't. So now let's say it by korban Pesach. I got a source. Let's learn that truma and gerushin and kedushin from kachim. Says the Gemara, and kachim is more severe. So if something more severe has a shliach, certainly something that's less severe should have a shliach. You know why kachim has a shliach? Because when you think about kachim, you think about the Beis Hamikdash. Who does the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash? the kohen. And the kohen, we had a shaila. Is the kohen our shliach or the shluchei d'shemaya? Right? We had a shaila, but clearly he's a shliach, right? So you know why kachim shlichus works? Because of the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash, right? If it was not Yidei Shliach, Mashen came Truman and Gerushin and maybe in Kidushin that. Okay, there's no way we can learn out Truma and Gerushin from Kachim, and one from one you can't learn out. Let's learn out one from two. It says Mahai Tesi. Don't write by korban Pesach. And learn that from Truma and Kidushin and Gerushin. Malahanach Truma and Gerushin, Sheken Yeshna Chayil, Eitzel Kachim. Right? Kachim is Kodesh. So I can't learn out that from them. Loy Nichra Mana be Gerushin, so don't write by Gerushin, V'shilach, V'teisei Mehanach from Truma and Kachim. Malahanach Sheken Yeshna b'machshava. Truma is b'machshava. And Tosfos brings that if you think to bring a carbon, then you have to bring the carbon. Don't write it by truma and learn it out from Kiddush, Gerushin, and kachim. Rashi, v'teisei mehanach, ma kachim she'hen kodesh yeshna b'shliach, truma she'choyel lekol shekein. I say mal kachim she'hen roiv ma'asei ma'idei shliach, gerushin yochiach. Mal gerushin she'hen yeshna choyel etzel truma, kachim yochiach. Guys, right? In other words, you're going to play one off against the other. What are you going to say by kachim? Roiv ma'aseyem, gerushin tachiach. Mal gerushin, which is choyel, kachim tachiach. V'chazer adin. So the l'chayra, we have a good question. Why was it necessary to say atem gamatem when I could have learned it out from sad hashava memetzinu from gerushin and kachim? What are you going to ask? Ma'ala kachim that what roiv masayim gerushin yachiach. Ma'ala gerushin, which is choyel eichel truma, kachim yachiach, which is not choyel eichel truma. Chazra din le'rizek rizeh. What's sad hashava? That's how they yatzma they shliach shluchot k'maisai afani avi truma. So that's what the Gemara is holding right now. Hachanami, in hachanami, you're right. You won. So therefore now, so why do you have a kasha? Why does it have to say atem gamatem, right? Why does it have to say atem? Why does it have to say gamatem by shlichus? If I don't need to write shlichus by truma because I can learn it out from kachim and gerushin, why is it necessary? Ve'ela atem gamatem lamali kval the kasha. Mi boy le the Rabbi Yanai. Don't Rabbi Yanai. Gamatem ma'atem b'nei bris, avshluchachem b'nei bris. Just like you are a Jew, you're part of the covenant, holy people, so too your shliach has to be. Halamali kramit. Why do I need a pasuk atem gamatem to teach me that? I know that from the Rabbi Barabba. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Nafka. I'm Rabbi Barabba. Rabbi Yochanan. Eina eved nasa shliach lekabel get miyad baila. An eved cannot be a shliach to receive a get miyad baila shalisha. Visha eina b'toyris getting the Kidushin. An Eved's not in the ballpark of getting the Kidushin, so the Eved can't be a Shliach. So l'chayra, why do I need atem gamatem to go exclude an Eved? L'chayra, of course, not a B'nai Bris. L'chayra, an Eved's not in the ballpark because he's not in the ballpark of Kidushin and Gerushin. In order to play the game, in order to make the rule, you got to play the game, right? You're not in the game over here. Says the Gemara, Itzrich. I still need atem gamatem. Salkadei dechamin, I would have thought, Eved the lav b'nei heterahu. An Eved, if an Eved's mekadosh someone, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. If a guy separates truma, it is truma. If a guy separates truma, it's truma. I would say they're in the ballpark. So atam gamatim tell me they're not. Not. Rabbi Shimon, the potter, who says that the truma of a guy is potter, what do you need them for? That nan truma kechavim midamas. If it gets mixed in with chulin, it makes it dimua, and you have to sell it to a kayin. V'chayvul of chaimish. If you eat it b'shoigeg, you have to pay keren b'chaimish. Rabbi Shimon poiter. So we see Rabbi Shimon poiter atam gamatam lamali. Like Rabbi Shimon, you're telling me that to exclude b'nei bris, and why that would take care of an eved. It wouldn't take care for a guy because the guy is in the ballpark of truma. So since the guy is in the ballpark of truma, you would think he could make a shliach, kamash v'lon atem gamatem, that he can't make a shliach. That's very good. That's in the ballpark of truma. Like Rabbi Shimon, he's not in the ballpark of truma. So I don't need atem gamatem to go ahead and exclude him. So why do we need the atem gamatem for if I can learn out truma from kachim and gerushin? It's I still need the atem gamatem. Saklat hamin and choyel v'amar atem v'lo yarisin, not the sharecroppers. Atem v'le shutafim, not your partners. Atem v'le apotropis, if the yisayimim, that the bezdin appointed apotropis. Atem v'le atroimin ashein shaloi, and that's it's term for something that doesn't belong to him. Ema atem v'lo shluchachem kamash malon. So in other words, there's a svara over here to say that there's a svara over here to say that a shliach wouldn't work by truma for regular people, not for a guy, for regular people. In other words, people that you're involved with, that you're limiting the people you could take off truma. The apotropis can't have truma, the iris, the sharecropper, the shutfin. So therefore, you might think you can't appoint a shliach. Kamash Malon, you still could appoint a shliach, despite the limitations regarding other people that you're knowing with. So Reb Shimon, there's nothing to do with a guy, right? Guy is out of the ballpark. I don't need the atem gatem to exclude a guy. I need the atem gamatem to tell me that goofy, you can make a shliach because there's a havamina you could make a shliach. Why? Because the apotropis can't take it off. A person can take off any shaloi. An arbis can't take it off, and therefore I would say what a shliach can't take it off. Kamash money could take it off. Okay, along the way we just said a question. We said an eved is not in the ballpark of getting Kidushin. How in the world was there for Eliezer able to be Mekadesh Rivka? Here's the blog, Lenny. How in the world was Eliezer able to Mekadesh Rivka? The Gemara said openly, an Evet's not in the ballpark of getting a Kidushin, right? So there's been this bulge in my Gemara since the beginning of the Masechta. It was this page, Pardes Yosef. Rav Matas gave it to me years ago. It's dated November 20th, 2008. A little, almost 15 years ago, right? It was 2 cycles ago. Baruch Hashem, we have Zoom, so I can share it with you. Okay, I'll try to make it a little bigger so you can see. Okay. It says in Parshas Chayesara that Avram Avinu wrote over everything to Eliezer. He gave over a star that Eliezer owned everything, right? Shtar Matana Kosav LeYitzchak. He wrote a Shtar Matana that everything belongs to Yitzchak. Reisi b'shem Sefer Pri Aryeh, the Kosha, Eich Sholach le'Eved Eliezer, HaKaimelon, Ein ha'Eved Nasa Shliach al Kidushay Isha, Ayin Kidushin Mem Aleph on the days. For Rambam, Perik Gimel Halacha Yudzayim Ishus. Rebbe Ezra Siman Lamed Hey Sevav. So how in the world was Eliezer? He wasn't in the ballpark. How could he be? Ach be'emes ibe mikne de dafka b'shvil ish acher she'ein a rabbi. That's only if he's being kind of for someone who's not his master. Aval a rabbi yochel kadesh. An eved for somebody else can't be a shliach, but an eved for his master could be the loy mitam shlichus hu. Rak mishum diyad eved kiyad rabbi. So the fact that Eliezer was Mekadesh Rivka was not mitam shlichus. He was acting as what? As Avram Avinu. As Avram Avinu, right? So not shlichus, but there's a problem. Who is he being Mekadesh? He's being Mekadesh for Yitzchak. The Kiddush Ava Yitzchak, v'leihoya Rabbi. Yitzchak wasn't. V'zeh kosav the shtar matana kosav liyitzchak. That's pshat why it's said that Avraham Avinu wrote everything over to Yitzchak. Es kol shaloi v'gam avdoi b'chlal. In other words, the Velt learns he wrote over everything to Yitzchak to make him more, I want to marry a rich man, right? He's got everything. There was a lumdus over here. Yitzchak had to be the owner, the Odin of Eliezer, or else it wouldn't have worked, because he couldn't be a shliach. He had to be his eved. Es kol shaloi v'gam avdoi b'chlal v'nase Eliezer avdoi shel Yitzchak u'kamei shekosa b'seif haparsha hu adoini al Yitzchak. He called him his Adon. So super geschmack, a super geschmack pshat over here to explain, right? It didn't work al shlichos. He couldn't be a shliach. It worked al yad eved ki yad rabbi. The problem was he wasn't his rabbi. He was Avram's eved. So what did Avram do? He wrote over everything to who? To Yitzchak. Mamela, when he wrote over to Yitzchak, who now does Yitzchak own? Eliezer. Therefore, Eliezer could be Mekadesh Rivka, not mitam shlichus. Mitam yad eved ki yad rabbi. Masla kidvash. Yes, Harold.
Yitzchak wasn't allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Why didn't he do it himself? Wasn't it one of the reasons he couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael? He was already like a carbon that was shechted. I thought I heard, and he wasn't allowed.
I mentioned that earlier when we did Rashi. That it was Asa. So how we asked the Kasha? How is it possible? Then if it's Asa the Mekadesh without seeing, how could it do? So if you go back to Rashi. This is what I explained, Harold. Go back to Rashi. Okay. On the Amid Aleph, Rashi says on the one, you see the Rashi parallel to the Hadron Alecha Isha Niknis? Yeah. Im Yachal Lekadesh Ba'atzmai. What does that mean? If he's able to Mekadesh himself, in this case, Eliezer,
So he couldn't do it. Right. He
he couldn't do
right.
it.
Right. Right.
We mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very beautiful lumdis, how to explain why a difficult question. Okay, we'll stop over here. B'ez Hashem, tomorrow morning we'll learn again.
Time.